We're in the garlic fields. So we spent our summers as kids picking garlic. This was the easiest job that we were able to get. I was 9 when we started, and I'm here to see that nothing has actually changed. It's exactly how we were working on our knees, filling up a bucket.
I don't know that I was ever told to go, or my dad said, we need you to go. I remember seeing them go off to work and I realizing that I want to go work too. In our household, everyone was working, so that's something that I wanted to do. And I remember being excited. I didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't know how hard it was going to be, but I remember wanting to work, yes. I remember working in the fields, and then we had to stop because school was going to start. And I was going to go, I believe, into the 3rd grade. And I remember, the first day of school, I have my new set of clothes for the first day, right? And I remember being teased because on the 2nd day, I didn't have a new set of clothes. And I think that was the first time that I realized, oh, okay, we don't have what others have. That was probably the first time that kind of started getting into my mind that, oh, we are poor. And this is why we have to work. I can't tell you if my parents pushed my siblings to work in 2 jobs. It could have been out of necessity that my sisters and brothers started working 2 jobs. And then for me, I saw what they were doing, and it wasn't going to be any different or easier for me.
When we were picking garlic, I remember getting up very, very early in the morning, maybe by 3 in the morning, to help my mom prepare our meal. And then I wake up all of the younger brothers and siblings. And once we were ready, we will get on a car and drive towards the fields, the garlic fields.
We would all pack into a tiny car and just go out 4 in the morning, the music blasting.
The drive there, I remember driving, we'd listen to music.
I remember it being dark. I remember trying to sleep in the car and getting some rest before we got there.
My brothers were a little bit younger, so it was tough rolling out of bed. So, we would complain in the mornings, and, my mom would tell us, hey, we have to go to work. We got to go to work. So I remember complaining, and then there was a few times when mom would, she'd kind of get on me about, hey, we got a job, we have to go do it.
I've always been a morning person, so waking up wasn't a big deal. But when it's weekends and all of a sudden, most people are waking up and they're watching cartoons in the morning. You're waking up at 4 in the morning and you're going out to just in the blistering heat and working in the fields.
When we arrived at the garlic fields, you see a lot of cars and they're kind of backing up one behind the other. It was so early in the morning that I remember a lot of the people who had cars would turn on their lights from their cars so that we could see what we were working on because it was that dark.
The supervisor would come over and he would let us know where we were, what section of the field we would start at, especially if it was a new field. So they would tell us what section of the field we would start, and then, we would go to work. They would have buckets there, and then we came with our clippers. Everybody had to have clippers, so we would go and start working. So this is what the clippers that are used to pick garlic. I remember we held them like this, the blade facing up.
And we had like a process. My sisters and I will be clipping garlic, and then maybe the boys, because they could carry or lift a little bit heavier buckets, they will be the ones running them over to dump them.
You would pick the garlic, you would fill up the 5-gallon buckets. Sometimes people would fill up 4 before, so they would go dump them into this big wooden bin. We would have little carts. They would look almost like this cart here. You got one of these every day? So you would take your card with your, let's say, 2 buckets full of garlic, and then you will go dump them in the bin, which was, nearby. Once you got there and you had 2 buckets, then they would punch 2 holes in your cart. A favorite moment is probably when we became friends with one of the ponchadoras, one of the young ladies there. So sometimes we would take 2 buckets, but, instead of punching 2 holes, she punched an extra hole. So we had an extra, a bonus bucket. It didn't always happen, but hey, sometimes we did.
And I remember Antonio was like, he was real smart. Some might call him a little sneaky, but he would fill up 1 bucket, and the other bucket, the second bucket, he would go halfway. So what Antonio would do is he would walk up there, and when the attendant of this wooden crate wasn't looking, he would quickly drop the half-filled bucket into it. Then she would hear the noise, she would look around, and then he'd drop the full-size one, kind of giving the perception that both were full when they clearly were not. Sometimes I would go, and I don't know if it was my mom's idea, but she would send us with like an ice chest full of Gatorades, and then in between breaks, she would have us go sell the Gatorades to the other farm workers for and then we would sell these, cold Gatorades that everyone wanted, for slightly more than what we paid for it. It's kind of another way of making a living out there.
I didn't like waking up early. What I do remember is, how much could a 10, 11-year-old child do? I don't remember it being so tough because I didn't do a lot of the work. I think it was more fun.
I actually only got to go work one day in the fields, and really for me, because I was one of the younger ones, I wanted to go for fun, which is probably very different from my older siblings' experience, but for me, because I saw that they got to get up and they got to go and work, so I went one day just for fun. But I definitely do remember them going. I remember, the family just loading up, them always packing. I have very distinct memories of how they dressed, because they would wear like the long sleeve shirts. They always had some sort of a covering for the back of their neck, which really, I remember at that age thinking it was odd because I knew that the work was outside and that it was in the sun. So it always surprised me how they were so covered to be doing this really hot work. I saw it, I guess, at that point as like something fun that they got to do, not really realizing that it was work.
There were some funny things that happened too. Like kind of you're working, but you're racing to see who's the fastest.
Even though it was labor, we're going out there and it was like a family outing essentially. And there was a lot of music, a lot of laughs. During breaks, we would enjoy our meals.
Since we started around 6 in the morning, 5:30, 6 in the morning, lunch from what I remember was around 10 a.m. That was like my favorite part because we would get around, my brothers and sisters, my mom sometimes, and we'd flip over one of the empty buckets and we would sit on that. That was kind of our chair. And then we would see what mom packed us for lunch. And typically it was a burrito with like nopales and chorizo and and frijoles. And it was just like the best meal ever.
We had an amazing mother who would always just pack these amazing meals. I don't know how she was able to cook these meals. If we were leaving at 4 a.m., that means she was up at 3 a.m. cooking. So she made sure we had like breakfast and lunch packed.
My favorite memories from picking garlic was just spending time with our siblings during lunchtime. We always look forward to. It was like a picnic, like a party kind of. We had so much food. My mom made sure to pack us enough food, and we will just gather and just enjoy our meals.
The conditions were pretty hard when you're picking garlic. It gets extremely hot in the Central Valley. It was very common for us to just look down and, you have a blister that's about to pop. Sometimes our clippers would get dull and it was just really hard to kind of get through the clipping of the garlic. And I just remember that there was times where either we didn't take enough water and you're just out there dehydrated, you're thirsty, it's hot. So there was days where I probably didn't want to go. But I was fortunate that when you have siblings like mine who work hard and don't complain, and that's what you're surrounded around, then I couldn't complain. So there was times where I'm sure I didn't want to go, or there was times where maybe I didn't work as hard or kind of clip as much garlic as I should have. But it always made it easier when I looked down the row and I would see my sisters and brothers head down, just constantly working all the time. I remember when the first paychecks came in that the money went to my mom. And she used that to help pay bills, buy food, I'm sure, and anywhere where we need money for the family.
We will always celebrate because if it was maybe 20 buckets, 30 buckets, that meant $1 a bucket. So even if we came home with $30, $40, $50 maybe, for us, that was a lot of money. And for us to be able to contribute and help our parents with this amount of money, it meant a lot.
It was just very hard, but we did it knowing that we were getting paid, and so that was something that I enjoyed, even though it was hard. But it felt like this is worth it. It's hard, but we got to do this, and we can help our parents by buying our own things and not having to expect that they buy everything for us, because there were so many of us. They couldn't buy us everything.
We knew that it was going to help in some way. The money that we earned was going to help either at the home, so that we can buy food, groceries for the family, but it also was going to help for us so that we can buy our clothing, so that when we started the school year, we would have new shoes, some nice good jeans, and we would buy some clothes with that money as well.
It felt really good to see that I was able to contribute because we were poor. Our parents couldn't afford very much. So it was just good that I got to go out there And to me, I made a lot of money. I mean, there were some times where I'm making $50 a day. So I was able to work during the summers and have enough money to purchase all my clothes for school. So I didn't feel like I was a burden on the family by any means. So it just felt good to be able to contribute.
When my dad got sick, at that point, there was never a time that I thought about losing my parents. And then, and then the reality sets in that you could, you could lose your father. I was on a trip when I got the news that that Stanford had released my father. They said there was nothing else they could do for him. And I was in Argentina at the time, and I had left the trip early, and got to see my dad one last time before he passed away. She was admired as a mother, and as the person that she was a good person. She was a good friend, and we were blessed with the wonderful mother and father. And that was one of the biggest blessings that we've had is to have them as parents. Our family, the one thing that kind of makes us different than most is we have this like amazing bond between all of us. Sometimes you have two siblings and they don't get along and they don't talk. There's 8 of us, and there's this immense bond that we have. Constant communication, there's love, we're all there for each other.
Family to me is like everything. I'm so grateful that I have 7 older siblings, and the thing about our family is like we're so close. I can always count on them. Like there's not, like if I needed anything, whether it's advice, whether it's financial, whether it's a hug, like I think I can call every single one of them, and like they wouldn't like think twice about it.
Was it crossing the border together? Was it working in the fields together? Was it kind of struggling alongside our parents and kind of working hard and seeing everyone grow and see everyone improve in life? It could have been all those factors, but it could be that there was always a sense of love at home, a sense of respect and love from my dad to my mother and vice versa. So growing up, when you have like this healthy, loving family, whether you're poor or not, that creates this bond that has continued with us today. And my parents are no longer here, but if they were to see this would make them even more prouder than the college degrees, is to know that we're still together. Our story should highlight that our parents deserve all the credit. They deserve all the credit, because that hard work would have never happened. The opportunity would have never happened. That example would have never happened had it not been for them showing us and leading by example.
Coming together is important for us because it kind of reminds us of where we came from. Seeing our children grow up, it brings us, there's hope for the future. There's hope for the Weezer family to continue this legacy.